It's a huge challenge for this sector if we're going to de-risk from China, if we're going to build up our economic resilience, let alone the green transition. McKinsey estimates something like $3 to $4 trillion worth of extra investment needed by 2030 if we're going to meet those goals. It doesn't feel like it's going to come from the large global mining companies. They're more focused on consolidation. So it's going to need to come from private capital. There are opportunities, but there's also a lot of risk and a huge capex challenge that we've always had in mining, but particularly given the challenges from China. And one of the things I think you'll see is the mid-cap experts, and Appian is the leader in that space, trying to add value rather than just consolidate. We've, in the last few years since 2016, brought 12 mines or mining projects into production. That is more than the biggest 5 global companies put together. That just gives you an illustration. Yes, there are opportunities out there, but we're going to have to do it in different ways.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And Dominic, it's one of those eternal questions that we look at on this channel, that what does private equity and what does private capital know that the big energy majors or the big mining companies in this case don't know as well? You said twice that they're concentrating on mergers and acquisitions and consolidation. But surely if they saw fantastic opportunities, they are the ones who are perhaps best placed because of their access to global mining assets and indeed capital.
They've certainly got comparative advantages, but I think what we have and what others like us have, which gives us a USP, a comparative advantage, is a very strong in-house team. So, for example, at Appian, we've got 90 specialists on metallurgy, engineering, geology, and that means that we can really be focused on adding value to the assets, and that's borne out in the data that I've provided you with. I still think there's massive challenges, an uphill challenge, particularly if we're going to catch up with China and de-risk and the green transition. And the two things we're going to need to see more of is public-private partnerships, end-to-end supply chains, and friendshoring. There's a lot of talk about de-risking from China and onshoring. We're going to need a lot more friendshoring if we're going to meet the breadth, but also the volume of, for example, critical minerals and rare earth needs that the US say they need, for example, defense applications. US won't be able to do it just on their own. Do they bring in Vietnam? Do they bring in Brazil? We're going to need to collectively be more agile. And again, that's something I think we can certainly support with.
Dominic, it's Karen jumping in. Good morning to you. I'm glad you mentioned critical minerals because I've been reading a compelling report, A Rock at a Hard Place, and you've probably read this report. This is the House of Commons Committee report that was issued for 23-24, and basically it's calling out 18 minerals that are on the UK's critical minerals list, but they're saying they're heavily concentrated in specific geographies, namely Brazil, 98% of Niobian reserve, Democratic Republic of Congo that has the global cobalt mining, Russia with palladium deposits, China, the primary producer of 12 out of the 18 minerals on the list. What do you do about the geographies here that are not that friendly to the UK?
Look, we're certainly going to have to, the US, Europe, the UK, rely not just on the traditional Pacific and transatlantic allies, but reach out more broadly. I think if you look in those non-aligned, some of them BRIC countries in Latin America, can we bring in Peru, Brazil, Argentina? If you look towards Asia, you heard from the Vice Minister of Minerals from Saudi. I think Saudi is going to be a big player, but also the Philippines, Indonesia under a new president. And we're going to need to be more deft. Really good example of that is one of the investments that we focused on. We mine through Graphcoa high quality graphite for the EV market. It is then processed and refined in Arizona through a company called Urbix, which has just got a grant from the US government. It's a good example of the public-private partnerships we need, but also that friendshoring with Brazil, which is a big player in the mining space. We need to be more agile, and it'd be very interesting to see how the new administration in the US approaches that.